numbskull, I'm broadcasting.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Name just one thing. Name just one thing. Is there any hope in sight? That's the name of our show tonight at the Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight. I have here with me Mr. A.J. Hayes is right across over there. He's the commentator of Common Sense. My name is Jim, the teacher. You'll know me from Brotherhood of Liberty, and you'll know that what we do here is we break down the common sense. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, tell them about what's going on, tell them about how the common sense is oozing from the computers and getting to you. It's just leaking out. As much as the establishment is trying to push it in and keep it in, the common sense is coming through. So, ladies and gentlemen, my brothers, my sisters, everybody out there, AJ Hayes, take it away.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for tuning in to the Cycle of Mayhem in plain sight. Like Jim said, tonight's show, the title, Name Just One Thing. And is there any hope in the near future? And that's kind of the topic for tonight's show. I'd like to welcome everyone, and like Jim always says, like and share. And this here on the Cycle of Mayhem, this is where we try to remove the smoke and mirrors, lift up the curtain, and expose to you things that are going on. Those of you who are in search of answers and trying to cut through cut and get to the truth, we're going to do our best as always to try and show you things that are in plain sight right there for you to let your common sense kick in and decide for your own. We're going to tell you the way it is, the way we see it, and present it to you so you can make your own decision. So that being said, Jim, may I?
Go ahead. Take it away, sir.
Okay, so it's name just one. Please, somebody just name one thing. And please don't think of this as being repetitive. Maybe we've seen this here before, because I think you're going to be interested in the way we highlight some things tonight. But let's take a look at a second here. I don't even know if we call it the Biden administration. I think it's still up for question. So maybe it would be the leftist operative ideology operation or something along that lines. But whatever you call it, the people in charge name just one thing, and we've asked this for the past couple of weeks, that they've done right. But thus far, and just a consolidated few, no secret we have drugs, illegals, viruses, and criminals coming across our border. They don't even have to hide anymore, because this administration said, no, we don't want a border wall. We don't, and in fact, belittles our border agents and doesn't give them any support, and pretty much will crucify them for doing their own job, or doing their job in protecting us here in the homelands. We also have the best gas prices we've had in over 30 years. Yeah, right. Inflation, gas prices, cost of goods, everything is skyrocketing. Another accomplishment by the Biden left agenda, or operatives, or whatever you want to call them. IRS snooping around for $600. We're going to touch on these individually, but just going through the list, think about that. $600 moving around in your account with inflation. Pretty soon, a pound of ham and cheese is going to be $600.
Yeah.
I would hope your common sense.
They say bacon $70 a pound now, or $7 a pound.
It's gourmet. It'd be like caviar. Yeah. But we snicker at it, but it's pathetic. It's actually stomach turning to think. And we're halfway down the list. His foreign policy, China, on the brink of war with Taiwan. We're going to tie in later on and tell you why that's really important, other than what you visualize. Is anytime China starts dropping bombs or doing anything, there's nothing pretty about that. And our Middle East allies, his whole foreign policy, kibbutz, our allies and stuff like that have no trust in us. The world, we are no longer. I don't think anyone with a clear conscience could say we are the superpower of the world. I think we're jello, and it's all because of this, the actions and of not only the person who sleeps in the White House, but his hard left people that he assigned to high levels and high places to be part of his cabinet and running these different departments that affect our everyday lives. Our schools, going to sick the dogs on the schools, the domestic terrorist parents, that's you, and people in your neighborhood want to just show up at a school board meeting. We'll touch on that. The cancel culture, which you could say, pronouns, all that nonsense. A little bit of pushback on there because it's starting to hit some of these Hollywood people in their pocket. But, where do we get off under the First Amendment, telling us what we can and can't say. Big one, no law and order. We're going to touch on that tonight too, but it also trickles down to why you're seeing such, highlight reels of the violence going on in the schools and fisticuffs and all kinds of problems in retail, stealing in the stores, total lawlessness, anarchy and lawlessness because of a lack of a law and order. It kind of, again, all speaks for itself. Mm-hmm. So as we start to break them things down, again, I'll ask, name one. And we'll leave that open if anybody wants to comment, put something up there, feel free to do it. But I always try on this show, those of you who've been watching all the episodes, is be open-minded and not lean towards one side or another, but call it as it is. And I wish if there's something we're missing here or I'm missing, I welcome you to post it, tell us one thing he did good. And I'd like to hear from you. I'm sure, Jim, you'd like to hear from him. Well, but the invitation is open.
I didn't hear anything about what happened this weekend. Did you mention the problems with the air travel?
Yes. The mandate, the mandate that was put out, or shall we call it threat, that was put out, it is my understanding that it wasn't actually officially law or rule. It was kind of dangled out there in the media, and some of these big corporations ran with it. And I could tell you this, as a frequent flyer of one of the major airlines, spending money with them does give you a little bit of cred. And when you call customer service, you usually get an answer pretty quick. But that being said, and they bomb you with emails, they know your algorithm when you book all your flights. So all that cool stuff's going on, but not one email, nothing to say, excuse me, and apologize that we're experiencing delays. Fortunately, I was not one of those poor folks that was stuck and couldn't get a flight, but there was something going on there where the excuse was weather and air traffic control, and the weather just blew my mind because it's not 1975. People could sit there at their fingertips and look on their phone right, and look at point A to point B, and there's not a cloud in sight. And as time ticked on, it appears that there may have been a cold that went around among some of the pilots, the flu or something like that, because they just don't want to get the shot, or maybe they have feelings about it. I know there was a pilot they interviewed, and he does have the antibodies, and he was very clear about that. I'm just going to go off. I'm going to go off here. Not that we're scripted, but I want to know. There was somebody very close in a circle of people that I know who just passed away 2 weeks ago, and it was very, very short time, less than a week after they were vaccinated. Now, full transparency, we're not doctors here on the Cycle of Mayhem. We don't pretend to be doctors, and I always said you do what you want at the advice of your physician. So this is not an anti or pro-vaccination thing we're going to touch on here. This happened. And why it happened raised a question that I don't know if it was answered. But anyway, unfortunately, it was an untimely death days after receiving the vaccine. There could have been underlying factors, some other illnesses, but that we know. And that brought me to think, as time evolves with all the different types of variations we hear about the vaccine and the shots and flip-flop Fauci, Cardinal Fauci, the Medinajad Fauci, whatever his title is, whatever crown he wants. When people get the vaccine, wouldn't it make sense maybe to test them to see if they currently have COVID at the time? that maybe they have COVID and they're not experiencing symptoms, and their body thing called immune system is doing its job, fighting it off, and then all of a sudden you don't know any better, and you get a little dose of COVID vaccine, and you overdose, overload your body, and your body can't fight it. I don't know. I'm asking. Jim, have you heard anybody talk about that? Like,
no, I haven't heard. I haven't heard anything about. Like, listen, I got the vaccine, and I would say that there's a lot of people out there who are nervous about getting it. I've had friends who have approached me and said that they're unwilling to get the vaccine. I know people in different jobs. I don't want to be too specific, but I do know, for example, in the medical industry, I know somebody who, for the last 8 months, hasn't been called in to do extra shifts, and then recently, with this, just recently, after the mandate demand by the guy who sleeps in the White House, all of a sudden that person is now getting phone calls for extra shifts because they're shorthanded in the medical industry. And so I'm assuming that this is not a medical industry issue only. I'm assuming that it's like the causality of things. Like, can you say, is there a definitive, like, has somebody done a study to connect the dots? Right? No one's done a study, but to connect the dots. But when A happens, and then B happens, and then C happens, it's very likely that it's the reason, right? So, I mean, if you see what's going on with the airlines, you see what's going on in the medical industry, you see where hospitals are overwhelmed and they're not able to handle the load that they're getting because they don't have the staff. I don't know. I mean, I don't consider myself intellectual, but I do think I can align between the dots, right? Am I wrong in thinking that?
I think what's happened as time evolved, this COVID virus was new to everybody. But as time evolved, and regardless if you were influenced politically with, making a statement with the mask or wrapping yourself in duct tape and plastic, obviously that infiltrated the awfulness of the virus, became very politicized and like a tug of war with it. The average person with a little bit of common sense and some life experience has now had time to start really thinking this through. And that question, again, unfortunately came up because this gentleman passed unexpectedly. And it was an organic question. It just came to mind when you pull up, if it's a drive-through or wherever you go to get your vaccine, would it be smart to give someone an instant check first to make sure they don't actively have the virus and their body's doing pretty good, they're asymptomatic, and now, boom, you hit them with a shot of this stuff and sends them off the rails? I think it's a legitimate question, and I think as time ticks on, just probably you viewers out there, quite a few of you who have various questions that came to mind, and now you look back and say, you could basically start to sort out some bullshit, that's for sure.
Right.
When it comes to that. So, again, we're not scripted here, but didn't want to go off the agenda for this evening, but it needed to be talked about. Someone actually, the other day, I encountered somebody, and, there was an area you had to wear the masks, and they actually said, I can't wait till November 3rd. I said, for what's that? I'm thinking, is there somebody you want to win in office? He said, no, so we can get rid of these goddamn masks. So we'll put that on here, mark this show, mark this episode, and let's see what happens on November 3rd or shortly thereafter. If magically the mask can go away. There is some little teasers being put out there.
I think it's, Election Day is on a Tuesday, right? And so
the second?
our show will be the day right after. So we'll have to definitely reconvene for that, right?
Yeah, I think there is a pattern. If you go back and look at, the peaks and valleys, what was it called? The Delta variant. Today in a local in a local newspaper, and I really don't read the newspaper. I was just kind of flicking through, and there it was. That was a big deal. Delta variant really hurting kids and all that. Again, we're not doctors on here. We're not telling you how to think, but there was this article right down in the far little corner. Delta variant doesn't have the effects on children that they thought. Wouldn't that be headline news? Jim, would that be like headline news or something like that? Like people might want to know because you have people scared to death.
We've talked about this, about the media's holes. They have a giant. They have sometimes people get blinded. They put these blinders on. What they do to horses so they can't see anything, and so they don't get scared or nervous. And they don't have blinders on. They got blinders. They got the things in the front, on the side, and every way around. And they're having somebody just telling them what to do, so they can't get it. They're completely missing those articles, like you mentioned.
It was that was the thing. You had this big newspaper, and literally the article might have been 2 inches wide by 3 inches deep. It wasn't in the top right-hand corner on the front page, but
kids are
I would think that's important
thing in our lives, right? Kids are the most important thing in our lives. You would want that. That's like big news. Your kid has a real possibility of being safe.
Yeah, especially when people are being, coerced now to start making decisions whether you want to get your children vaccinated or not. That's something people might want to know. And I couldn't help to think, based on the pattern of events over the past year or so, that is it a CYA thing that just hypothetically on November 3rd, if the numbers are great, they're leaning forward, we can remove the mask and you can eat Thanksgiving with a fork. You don't have to eat it with your hand behind your mask.
Right.
That they could go back and say, well, we did put it in the newspaper. We did release it. So, folks, I think some of you do know what we're talking about, and if not,
CYA,
feel free to look it up.
CYA.
Feel free to look it up.
It is.
So let's dive into the madness here. As you know, we talked about a little bit on the last show, but we're going to kind of go a little deeper into this. Kind of ties in with, we don't need the border. We don't need our law enforcement. Now, as you know, a few months back, it was a very, very popular leftist thing to say, defund the police, crucify the police, anti-law enforcement, and everything that had to do with lawlessness. Pro-lawlessness is what it equated to. And that's not working too good, as we know, because a certain person's numbers continue to plummet for a lot of reasons. But now it seems like it's evolved into the don't ask, don't tell. Like, they're not really blasting. Well, the alt-left is still insisting that the left hold that stance, but the left is looking at it that it's crushing our numbers and we're going to get our ass kicked because Americans hopefully are not that stupid and are going to finally start voting some people in there and get some balance. But they're still pushing for it, but it's still the wink of the eye going on that they're not putting it in the headlines. However, you don't see anybody from the left that I see really banging the drum saying, nonsense, we need to let police be police. We need to let our border patrol be border patrol. We need our military be military. Look, folks, politicians should not in any way, shape, or form. There's got to be a line. If they decide that we need to go for our military over in a conflict somewhere and handle something abroad in a military fashion, that's where their role should stop. Once they decide and give a green light, shut the hell up and let the people who are trained make the decisions and do their job. And that same thing should apply whether it's border patrol, local law enforcement. Where does a politician get off, all of a sudden being an expert in this? And obviously it's not working because our country is falling apart. And it's not just what you see, the bloodshed in the streets that we touched on last week and how they're trying to blind blood with bucks. It's this stuff is falling. I mean, you're seeing little 10-year-old kids sometimes, son, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. And the kid will turn around and give you the one finger salute. it's it's just not healthy. You have to have, whether you want to call it law and order or just some type of boundaries that we've come to know in society, that there's consequences for your actions. Whether it's teaching your child at a young age what's right, what's wrong, what's do's and don'ts, and boundaries and rules and curfew. This whole ideology is really, really, really causing a big problem. I mean, there's schools now are on virtual, not because of COVID or any spikes in COVID. They're on virtual because of the violence and the anarchy. And the one common denominator that seems to be across the board with schools having this problem, the same things as cities, is they are leftist-run school boards. There's anarchy in the school. It's gotten to the point, Jim, as a teacher, where football games, think about it. High school football, we needed that. COVID, people were on lockdown. We needed to get kids out there, and there's nothing better. What's good old Americana is high school football and sports, and they no sooner get it running, and they have to stop it because of all the fights and the anarchy. And in one case, there was a couple different cases throughout the country. There were shootings at the high school football game. Just total anarchy. I mean, no. What is to prevent this from happening? Because if the police do their job, then they're painted as the villain. Same thing as our border patrol. So, but the schools are being closed. It's just insanity. And one of the latest remedies was, instead of Friday night football under the lights, like is again good old Americana, they want to do the football games now on Saturday morning, feeling like it's daylight and the troublemakers won't be out. How about if you just enforce the goddamn law and don't let this become precedence? Maybe too late. It might be too late. I don't know. But staying on the line with this whole lawlessness, you go from that where you need attention and you need immediate reaction and you need people to enforce the law, to our AG again, bringing the Gestapo and threatening to bring in federal resources, to sniff around local school board meetings for the domestic terrorists, meaning, again, you and the people in your neighborhood that want to show up at a school board meeting and find out what's going on, because obviously they can't trust the news and they want to know, what are these things that people are talking about? Some people are very dialed in with it. Some people are already dug in on what their stance is, but there's a lot of people that are saying, well, what's going on? And you're going to use federal resources for that? Like, totally insanity. If there's anybody that disagrees, what do we have? Dave Gibson. You all have it so right. I'm with you. Thanks, David. I'm glad, some people out there like yourself have common sense. This is madness. These resources could be used at the border. It could be used with these terrorists that are coming through the border. That's why you have local law enforcement to handle any disruptions. Folks, let me tell you what this is about, and you can use your own decision. This whole thing from the AG and using federal law enforcement and using the word domestic terrorist for local school board meetings, okay, what they're doing, and they haven't got it, that's why, is their January 6th moment. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for their January 6th moment, just like the radical left and these anarchist groups tore down the goddamn country for 6-9 months, whatever it is, and it's still going on. And the thing goes down on January 6th, and as we said here before, thought it was really foolish for people to do that. We didn't condone it. It was kind of, what was your point? Mm-hmm. That took center stage over all that, all the carnage and all the death from those riots. They got their January 6th moment that they were looking for. Well, it looks like it's repeating itself again to deflect, because they realize common sense people are going to say, whoa, hold up a minute. These books that are in there talking about sex between a father and his daughter, all the way into the deep details, are on the shelves in middle school libraries? I don't think that's going to fly. So there's the diversion, the smoke and mirrors. So we're going to lift that tarp up for you and look at this for what it really is. You decide. But doesn't it sound very unusual that you would even put that letter out that you showed Jim on the last two shows, Brotherhood of Liberty and Cycle of Mayhem, that this threatening letter that, watch because there could be a federal agent sitting in that school board meeting. The only highlights that I saw, and there may be more, was way back when it was the resistance to the community people who came in there, and while the people were asking, what is this CRT? What are you teaching these kids about sexual identity and things along that lines? It was the resistance who went nuts and got arrested. If you go back, there's a video with a man, and he has a tattoo above his derriere. Come to find later on, he was the resistance. So that didn't work out too good. So are they looking for the January 6th? Or maybe they didn't get it, but by just putting it out there, they leave people to believe that, wow, these meetings really hit such a level that it's that violent at these meetings. There's passion and compassion at the meeting. If you consider a mom with a vein popping out of her neck, any vulgarity or any expression of her passion and emotions, domestic terrorism, this country's shot. This country's shot.
Jim,
it's going to shit.
I don't know if you heard on the show, we had this... We talked about this America First legal program foundation that actually sent a letter to the Inspector General about that. So this was actually a coordinated event, a coordinated action between the Biden administration and the School Boards Association and the National School Boards Association, so that they could gin up this controversy to get it in. Things happen way too fast. There's actually, if you check it out, there's this whole big thing. It's clearly political, based off of the using the federal government to go after the people, the parents, because everything you just said, you nailed, is because this movement of parents is going to hurt one party. And it's not the Republican Party. It's going to hurt one party in the upcoming elections. If it continues to roll, which it's going to.
Well, you just nailed it, because every week, folks, we tell you at the end of the show, don't forget this election coming up. It's not the big polarized presidential election, but there is a ton of school board elections going on throughout the country. And I actually have it here in my notes exactly the way Jim just explained it, it's the local leftists with their contacts. It's like it's one big operating machine of propaganda and bullshit that it's not working out for them at the ground level, so up the ante. In one area, in a particular school board meeting, a school board member who's known to be a leftist and very sketchy, very, very sketchy person. It was I wouldn't even call it a heated debate. It wasn't. It was literally dialogue. People from both points of view were saying their piece. They were registering in an orderly fashion. And it was a school board member who went out of line and used the term, "Oh, I see we have followers here." And then mentioned something in the meeting about a firearm that the meeting, it was such a closed, confined space. She should have been charged at that point under... You've heard people say, your First Amendment applies unless you scream fire in a crowded building. Well, she did. She used the word firearm or gun or something along that lines. And when called upon it, why wouldn't she file a police report if that was true, if that really happened? Or why wasn't she merely charged for that? And the president of the school board, who's also a leftist, did some kind of poor ass bullshit, excuse my French, made her apologize type of thing. But the snarkiness of it, and I think it was, that's going back a few months, and it boils down to that common sense. There might be some open-mindedness about the depth of CRT, but I think when you really get people's attention is when you do have concerned parents that went to a library in a middle school and read paragraphs out of a book that's accessible to middle school kids, and it's jaw-dropping. Ron Jeremy never did stuff like that.
No,
I don't know how to put it any other way. We try to keep our show, professional here. I couldn't do it for $500. Is read a chapter out of that book on this show. I couldn't do it. It would just not be. It's that bad.
Constitutionally protected rights of parents to be able to protect their children, have say in their education. It's constitutionally protected. It's been repeatedly constitutionally protected, as pointed out in with the Brotherhood of Liberty, with his John Wick, the lawyer. He's pointed out repeatedly that this is parents' choice, and parents have every right to speak up against whatever issue they see going on in their school. That's their job as a parent. Like as much as administrators think it's their job to take care of kids, and it is, it's also the parents' job to do that as well.
Well, and here's something I have to say, because we call it the way it is. With all this stuff going on, and let me just finish that segment here. So they want to bring and use federal resources again to patrol, snoop, whatever it is they're going to do, intimidate local residents from saying they're, exercising their First Amendment. And not only that, as a tax-paying citizen, to know what was going on in the school, let alone having kids in the school to know what their kids are being taught. They also, couldn't those resources, like I said, be used at the border? And when we hear about all these illegals piling in from the border, rapists, and they're not all, we know that, but they're not coming in legally, and there's more drugs and all kinds of disease and all kinds of things coming over. And what are we being told? Oh, they come in, they're processed, and we monitor them. The same group, we monitor them. How are you going to monitor the millions of people coming over the border illegally that are starting to pan out into our local cities now? We don't know how. We kind of have a good idea how this is going to play out, and it's not good. But you're claiming to the American people that you're keeping an eye on them and everything's good, and you can't find Gabby's boyfriend, Brian Laundrie. You can't find one guy. So you're going to keep track of 1 million people that came in here, and a decent amount of them have something. Every one of them broke the law, but then there's that portion of them that are very, very dangerous people, whether it's they're perverted, they're rapists, murderers, or even worse, coming into this country to do harm to Americans and carry out some kind of jihad mission. You're telling the American people you could track them, but you can't find one guy. Jim?
Don't forget diseased. Don't forget.
I did say disease, sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But not only that, folks, we can't afford them. We can't. Look at what you're paying. Look at what's happening. Your property taxes went up. Your food costs are going up. All your essential costs are going up. We have I hate to go down it, but I got to say it. A fellow I know, he just lost his best friend at a young age due to cancer, unfortunately. He went to a local hospital. The guy has been a bartender his whole life. That's what he did. Somebody's got to do it, and he did it. And God bless our bartenders and servers and waitresses out there that working on the front lines every day, short-handed, trying to keep things going. That's what he did. And unfortunately, a lot of those jobs don't come with medical benefits. So when he was diagnosed with cancer, he went to a local hospital, and they basically wouldn't touch him because he didn't have insurance. And that's true. That's not exaggerated. Now, one can't help to think, based on his age, that when he went to the hospital, it was 6 months later before he got very sick and went to a different hospital, and subsequently they took him in and had to do all this paperwork shuffling to get him some type of medical treatment. But we have all these people coming in over the border, and they're human beings. I get it. But we can't take care of our own. We have veterans sleeping on the street that have addiction problem, mental illness problem. We have Americans with addiction problem, mental health problems. When our own is all taken care of and we got a few bucks left over, then we could start taking some people on. But whether they're coming in legally or illegally, we got to take care of our own people. And that's not being done. Our own people are being neglected. This whole thing is a disaster. And again, just one thing. Show us one thing that's been done right. What a tumultuous time in 9 months. And as the title of the show said, is there any hope in sight? Because it just seems like every day we wake up and it's something else.
Yep.
Now, Jim, you have a clip you want to show while we're on the topic of border?
Sure, I got this, pulled this from Gateway Pundit. It's actually a headline from Custom Officials see small packages of life-saving ivermectin. I apologize for messing that up. And hydrochloroquine in Chicago, while record amounts of fentanyl continue to flow across southern border. So it's, I mean, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. It leads us into what you were talking about a few minutes ago about how where is the direction of the the federal government? Where is the federal government looking to protect us, or is it a question of is the federal government looking out for the best interest of Americans or not?
Well,
I leave that
I
question
mean,
to you, Mr. Common Sense.
when we look at this again, plain sight, notice the first sentence: customs, or sorry, plural, singular. Custom officials seize. Custom officials seize. Does it say border? Customs and border. Does it?
No?
Now, you might not think that's a big deal, but before you even get into the second part of that thing, which is it's lunacy, when you get just that part alone, could that be part of their propaganda machine where you throw something out like this to make it look like, look, our customs and border, because it can be easily confused, right? When you say customs and border patrol, yes? And notice it doesn't say that there, but one reads that, it makes you tend to think all systems go on the border customs, and hey, they are enforcing things.
That they're doing their job, yeah.
But you do get to the second line, and it does say, and these pills, I believe, were from Asia, correct? From China?
I'm not sure, actually.
I believe it was in the article. But, so they get the hydrochloroquine, they get the ivermectin, and this is insanity again. You're intercepting a couple hundred pills as the fentanyl continues to pour into the country. Right. Is that I mean, that's just as crazy as whatever idiots along the road, and I don't know who it was, Republicans, Democrats, both, whoever got lobby, PAC money, but who in their right mind would give China, India, we'll see, but giving these foreign countries the keys to our medicine cabinets? That should be done at home. What do we got, Dave, here? It says they're bringing in TB, AIDS, gonorrhea, syphilis, virus, and a whole slew of other diseases. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And we don't know where they're going because these camps that we saw through drone footage and stuff like that, they're I mean, what's it tell you when they won't allow, it's hard for me to say news media, but they won't allow people with cameras in there. They're even trying to deny senators and Congress people from going in there and seeing what's going on, and then poof, they vanish. Well, where are they vanishing to? You think they're putting them back over the other side of the border? I don't think so. So they're making their ways into a community near us. And if you also notice, if you dig a little bit in your community, I don't care if you're in a red area, blue area, you're starting to see a lot of these things pop up with this grant money for low-income housing and restoration of housing. I would think that it's a good indicator that there's probably some connect there where there could be, maybe a whole section of abandoned houses and they put a few bucks in them, and the next thing you know, it's an Asian community or a Mexican community or wherever other countries these folks are coming in from. But just like the gentleman said, we have our own disease problem here. We have our own addiction problem here. We have people without health insurance here. We don't need other people's headaches. That's just a common sense thing, which, when you hear the thing, folks, the saying, buy America, that's a proud patriotic thing. It's not easy to do these days, but there's a little bit more to just buy America than kind of meets the eye. Yeah, you want to support American business. Absolutely. I will pay extra any day if I know I'm supporting an American business, for sure. But there's some other things that go along with it. We talked a moment ago about giving China the keys to our medicine. So we create the medicine, and these are legal medicines that people depend on every day, and we give China the keys to it and allow that. Like that's just totally insane because you have a conflict with China, and now the next thing you know is our medicines floating around out there, Jim, in the Pacific on one of those cargo ships? Is that because I would assume it probably is.
I wouldn't doubt it. We're sitting in the airport waiting to be flown in. That's probably
with somebody's liver. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the pilots did touch on that. They don't just fly people. Underneath of that plane is essential goods sometimes and time-sensitive things. But, talking about Buy American, just recently we heard, and some of you may have heard about all the cars running through the assembly line, and they can't go anywhere because they don't have the semiconductors. Now, folks, we created all the technology for the semiconductor. It was our smart American people who created that technology and continued to advance that technology. However, zilch semiconductors are made in the United States. I understand there might be some things in the making, but they all come from Southeast Asia. And we have this conflict going on right now between China and Taiwan. Yes, a lot of semiconductors are made in China, but Taiwan is an ally. We do lean on them a lot for our semiconductors. So this could be a major problem, not just for cars, as you see the skyrocketing price of cars, but our electronics, phones, and more important, military capabilities.
Electrical grid, the sewage systems that we have, our water systems that we have, all that's run by computers. You can't have
all logistics.
You can't have that stuff without computers running it. That's the way it is. And if they don't have the chips that keep them going, or they break, or there's a system, a module that needs to be replaced, and there's no chip in that available for that module to replace it, then guess what? You got no module and you got no electricity, or you have no system whatever the system may be, whatever the infrastructure system that you need. This is getting into crisis. We're leading into a crisis.
Well, I just you took the words out of my mouth. Where folks, we don't want this show to be doom and gloom. Sometimes we have some fun on here, and we try to be a little sarcastic and add a little humor. But this is really getting to be, just recapping the illegals pouring across the border, the inflation and cost of everything skyrocketing, the IRS snooping around, the foreign policy, the schools, the cancel culture, lack of law and order. We got a major problem on our hands, and we need to start doing it quick, and get people at a local level, whatever's on the ballot coming up, wherever you live. You need to start voting some common sense people in there and get some pushback to stop it. And I do have to touch on this before we start to wrap this up, is I'm tired of hearing about these groups, and maybe they have good intentions, a group that legal organization, Jim, you mentioned, to push back against the Department of Justice sticking their nose in local school board meetings and stuff. It's not them I'm getting tired of hearing about, because they're trying to do their thing, but I'm tired of seeing these conservatives that are standing at the podium, and they just do what we just did. They read off the problems. Mm-hmm. We're not in office to fix the problem. Get on the goddamn floor of that house, and these conservative people and our representatives, and that's what they are. They're not our leaders, they're our representatives, need to get out there, and spit should be flying out of their mouth, demanding and put action. Action needs to go right now. Right now, they need to start moving out. Whatever type of legislative maneuvering they need to do, they need to start being proactive instead of reactive to the left. And if they don't, then they got to be voted out too. Where's McCarthy at? Pelosi's a screwball. No question about it. Nuts is a shithouse rat. Okay, over there seeing the Pope. Oh, man. That's another story for another time, how you could be pro-choice and Catholic. But, where's McCarthy? Where is he? These little blurps that these guys pop their little heads on, this Fox News and these conservative news networks, and they're like, they're doing this. You dumbass, it's your job to fix it. Yeah. Now push back. I don't want to hear you don't have the votes. You might get some Democrats to swing. There is a little bit of common sense left, a little bit, that they realize the face of the party's drowning, and it's not looking good. You got to do something. Whatever you have to do, get it done. Get it done.
You do see, though,
the game's over.
I will say, look at McConnell. There's a guy. He's the head of the Republican 50-50 setup in the Senate, And what does that guy do when he has that kind of power? Do you think he gets in the way of the Democrats trying to raise the debt ceiling? Do you think he gets in the way of them trying to, you know, spend all that money? Do you think he does anything for us? No,
Well,
he cuts he cut
it
a
looked like he
deal.
did a flip flop. Well, it looked like it was a flip flop
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it was
it was.
50 senators, absolutely not a unified thing.
Flip
Conservatives,
flops
not
come
one
with
were,
deals, though.
and
AJ, flip
then
flops come with deals.
absolutely. So Kentucky, start looking for somebody to primary him. That's what needs to be
It's
done. Enough.
unfortunate he was just had an election. He's in until 2026, so we're not going to get rid of him. But what we do need to do is, I would suggest getting a lot more senators who are willing to kick him out of his leadership
Yeah.
position. Because
Dethrone him. Yeah.
as a Republican leader, he sucks. He sucks as a Republican leader.
Yeah.
In fact, he is the primary reason for one of the problems that we're having in Congress right now, because he's a player cutting those deals, those backroom deals, while you and I suffer. He's got no problem with them raising the debt ceiling. It's like he's in a dance, raising the debt ceiling any way that they can keep the show going in
Well, he's like a
Washington.
little gnome. If you
Yeah,
think about it, you do see, the people who like the grandstand, the Lindsey Grahams and that type, they love to be
yeah,
in front of the camera and the microphone.
yep,
And you don't hear anything about McConnell, and then all of a sudden, whoop, 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 the little tortoise, pops up and, he gives this one little spiel, but then the next day, look, there's nothing to talk about. They need to start representing and pushing back, not just on a TV channel, on the floor of the House and inside Congress. Action, action now. I get it. If I was running for office, yes, we know that Joe Biden continues to be $1 billion worth of advertising campaigns funding for the Conservative Party. He's beautiful. He does a great job. The Conservatives are saving a ton of money, not having to run infomercials because you have
right,
Joe Biden policies that are doing great
right.
for him. But now it's at the point where it's dangerous, and they need to start doing their job.
Well, listen, Republican or Democrat, here's the deal. What you have going on in Washington is we're seeing all this money being spent. It's causing inflation. There's all kinds of finances, but the people in power are not going to suffer for their garbage that they're doing. The people who are going to suffer is the average Joe, average person listening to us right now, the average person working all day in the grocery store or working all day at the job doing their 9 to 5. They're the ones who are going to suffer because those people in power are insulated. I've said this before. I'll say
Oh,
it again. They're insulated from the wealth. They got the money. You okay over there, AJ? You got the they
yeah.
got the
I'm looking
they,
up a
they
name
got
right
the
now, real quick.
they got the money, they got the power, so that when the bills go higher, when you cost more for your electricity, when it costs more for your water and sewer, when it costs more for your food that you put on the plate to feed your kids, the clothes that your kids are going to wear, when that all costs more, they're going to be fine. They're not going to have a problem. They got enough money that they're going to be able to afford all that and more. Whereas you are going to have to make the tough decisions between what you're going to be feeding your kids tonight, what clothes you're going to get or not going to get, what bill you're going to pay this week or not. This is the tough
Well,
decisions of real life that they don't give a rat's rear end about. That's what it comes down to. Am I wrong, AJ? Am I off
well,
base on this?
no, and I think a good way to wrap up the show is we'll leave everyone with a question. Janet Yellen, and please look this up for yourself, when questioned that wasn't that a little insane to sniff around in people's bank accounts that's what's in this new bill, this gazillion, 5 trillion, whatever they're up to.
Right.
Isn't it a little harsh, like $600 to be snooping around in people's accounts for $600? And the reply, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but with the wealthy and the rich, it enables us to keep an eye on what they're doing. So I'm going to leave it with like a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that for one? Does that even make any sense? I'm going to repeat it. The reason why we are advocating to have the IRS sniff around in people's accounts for $600 or more is it enables us to find out where the wealthy, who they want to tax the rich, are doing with their money. Now, folks, I don't want to sway your answer here, but the wealthy will blow their nose with $600 and wipe their you-know-what with it. Okay? It's peanuts to them. They'll pay that for a set of wipers. So something, it just doesn't line up here. It just doesn't. And when you talk about, these politicians, these swamp politicians, these people making these deals, millions moving back and forth. And one other question. It sounds good, and we said this on the show before. Tax the rich. We're going to tax the rich, and it's all the benefit the little people. We're going to tax the rich. You really think they're going to tax the people who pay for all their PAC money and campaign funds?
Yeah.
Jim, that's enough said. I think my blood pressure's up right now, because it's frustrating, and I'm sure the viewers and America's frustrated. But as we always say, keep your cool, be kind, but you have to be firm when it comes to voting, and make sure, don't let that day go by. Don't think your vote won't matter. It's got to start somewhere. Whatever's on your ballot, get in there and put those common sense people in there and win. Start taking back this country, one town, one county, one state at a time. God bless.
Yeah. God bless and take care, everybody.